Right, Sam, how are you doing?
André, I'm not too bad. It's another hot and sticky one.
It is.
Yes.
It's very hot and sticky.
Absolutely. But we are once again regaled with a special guest who's wearing the crew colours. Right. So that's it. So we've got Julian from Woodstock IT.
Hello.
Yeah, welcome, Julian. Thanks for coming along.
Oh, thanks for inviting me.
Of course, we've gone full branded. We've got a mouse mat there, Woodstock IT. We've got your newsletter.
Yeah, very good.
Everything. I just need a cap. I need a tie.
Yeah,
A pen.
A pen.
And a USB drive.
I don't think we've got those, but we do have some company branded umbrellas, which you won't need at the moment, but maybe in the winter.
Sunshade, right?
That's it. Yeah, parasol.
Perfect.
Is that what you called them? Suntrade?
No, man, I just said that. I don't call them anything.
No, because this has come up in conversation a few times. So I'm always, it's an umbrella, is it?
Yeah.
Is that what you guys call it? Because obviously I'm not from here, so I'm still learning as I go, but yeah.
That's okay.
So just, we'll send him back to the chocolate factory and then he can be at home there. Good, excellent. Right, so anyway, back to proceedings. So, Julian, thanks so much for coming along, and we're gonna love to hear a lot about Woodstock IT, and of course about the man behind it and the things that you get up to. But tell us a little bit about Woodstock IT. The first question we ask everybody is really, where did it come from? What's the journey? How did you start it? Where has it got to now?
Okay, so I grew up in the 80s and 90s. And back then, technology was, sort of developing to the extent of people didn't really have computers in their houses. These big mainframe systems were reserved for big businesses, government, military, so on and so forth. So suddenly you get to the 80s, you've got the introduction of game consoles like the Atari, you've got the Commodore 64, which was one of the first PCs that people had. And so we went from a place of there being no technology in people's homes to suddenly you've got this device that can do all manner of magical things, and that was a really fascinating thing for me. And I know a lot of people that are into tech. They were on that same journey. These days, we've got new gadgets are released every few years, and the iPhone is refined on each subsequent release. But it's just a different version of what we already had. So it's almost like we've lost a little bit of that magic of brand new technology. So all of that is to say, I grew up in the 90s, and that was when I got my first PC, and in fact I built it from scratch with the help of some friends, and that was again fascinating for me to be able to put that together and understand how it all works, and then break it as I inevitably did, and then fix it again. And that really kind of just fueled my passion in technology, and that's kind of where it all started. So fast forward a few years, and I'm in college, and I'm sort of helping friends with building PCs, and I'm charging them for it, and that's where the concept of running an IT company came from. And then I spent a few years working for various IT companies, building up my knowledge and getting to a point where I felt I had something that was commercially viable that I could do on my own. I wasn't anywhere near close enough to that, but I thought I was. So fast forward to 2010, 2011, Woodstock IT was born, and mostly serving residential clients to start with, PC repairs and upgrades and things like that. And then over the course of a few years, we gradually started looking after businesses, and then the concept of managed services came to the fore, which is the idea that there's an ongoing service arrangement in order to maintain IT systems for businesses. And these days there's big emphasis on cybersecurity.
Of course.
We've sadly, in some respects, moved away from the residential market now because the two don't really go hand in hand. It was really difficult for us to maintain residential clients and business clients at the same time. But that's kind of the journey in a very sort of brief nutshell.
Brilliant. I mean, you guys do some amazing work in terms of the cybersecurity world. I mean, we've spoken a lot about just the ongoing threats that are out there, but also so many different ways that businesses can fall afoul of their security they don't even know about. And that must be a huge part of what you do, just making sure that people are secure, that we all take these things for granted, that actually everything's running smoothly, our IT is running smoothly, until suddenly it isn't. And it can just be because of a small slip or just someone not quite appreciating an email that looks friendly that isn't. So how much of that stuff are you seeing at the moment, and how do you as a company kind of manage that?
I mean, it's constant, and the phrase goes, "Ignorance is bliss," right?
Yeah.
The amount of business owners that I speak to that just have no idea how much risk they're exposed to, and some of them do have an idea, and they just accept it. They just kind of go, "Well, if I ever get hacked, then I'll deal with it. Or if I'm not really worried about my data because it's not that important, and that's fine. If that's how they want to approach their business, then that's up to them. But I think the vast majority of small business owners in Horsham and the surrounding areas, they want to be secure. They want to know that their data is safe, and ultimately they've got a responsibility to their clients, especially if they're holding personal data or anything of any sort of sensitive nature, even for their own staff. Arguably that is personal data. So businesses definitely have a responsibility to keep on top of this stuff, and it shouldn't really fall on the business owner because they've probably got more important things to be doing, and or they don't have the knowledge to do it anyway. There's a tendency with small business owners, you wear many hats.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
But I think IT is one that you should tread really carefully with that one. It can really, businesses can be caught out very easily. Like you mentioned, somebody clicks on an email that they shouldn't do, and they can often look completely legitimate. So interestingly, one of the services that we include as part of a managed service package is a simulated phishing attack. So it's completely harmless to the business, but we will send an email to the staff, and it looks like it's from Microsoft or some other company, and we'll see who clicks on the email and who puts their credentials in. It's not to get them in trouble, but it's just to kind of highlight to the business owner, actually, you might have a problem here, and you've got some staff that are clicking on stuff that they shouldn't be. So there are systems that we can put in place that will mitigate a lot of these risks. And unfortunately, there is no solution that covers all bases. It is about a layered approach. So with cybersecurity, you have your traditional antivirus, you might bolt in a security operations center, and then you've got simulated phishing, you've got user training is a big one these days. So there's all these different elements that you have to bring together as part of a sort of ongoing managed service package. And it doesn't have to be expensive. It is. We've designed various different packages for our clients that will cover all bases, and ultimately they can come to us, we can take care of it, and it's off their to-do list.
Yeah. And you talk about, you say this, already you're saying so many different elements and so many different ways that people can, their data can be vulnerable from business owners. And also you make a really good point that, it shouldn't really fall on the business owner's hat because, hey, you've got 1,000 things you've got to be doing and looking after. But also, I guess, from my perspective, just thinking about this for larger businesses, it must be a big deal to have even your own in-house IT people looking after this. Because they need to keep as up to date, as aware, as all that infrastructural work that you guys can do on a bigger scale, and therefore people benefit from that. Yeah. That must be a real task for the IT guy in the company to do, or the IT team in the company to make sure they're keeping on top of all the time. Have you encountered that? Have you seen businesses where that is working really well, or that you think actually, we could maybe even work with your teams to get things working in a positive way in that respect? Yeah,
so there's a couple of different scenarios. Obviously businesses will often grow to a certain size, and at some point there's that tipping point where it makes sense for them to have somebody in-house, a dedicated member of staff that takes care of all of the IT functions. But the problem there is that one person is going to want to go on holiday at some point, or they're going to be ill, or some other drama that staff can inevitably cause in a business.
Never happens.
So, and obviously the rule of IT is you always have a backup. So if you get one IT person, you actually need two. So, and then you add up those salaries, you're into six figures easily for two experienced staff that are capable of taking on that task. That's a good way to look at it. So a lot of sort of medium-sized businesses that are above 50 employees, they might have what we call a co-managed help desk setup. So they'll have somebody in-house that is taking care of some of the day-to-day stuff, and then they kind of have an overflow to our help desk, and we can support them either when they're not there, or if there's something a bit more complicated that they want to do, or they want to send us to a remote site where they don't have access to. So there's a few different ways that companies can approach it, but typically businesses below 50 employees, it wouldn't make sense for them to have an in-house IT person, because as I mentioned, they're going to need two of them, and it starts to get expensive. So And the other thing as well is if you work in a function in an IT role within a company, that's all you're doing. You've not necessarily got the exposure to the wider world in terms of best practices and what's the latest industry trends. And as an employee, you might be less motivated to do that stuff. Sometimes there's a tendency with these roles, and I've seen it in the past, where you just do your job and that's it. And your job is not necessarily to go and find out what the latest threats are. It's just to solve the problems that are in front of you.
Or even if you are right, if you take the other end of the spectrum, if you are super motivated and you really want to make sure that you are managing this properly, that's a huge weight of responsibility.
It is, yeah.
And also, I've seen, we follow each other on social media. I've seen the things that you do around going to conferences worldwide to make sure that you are super up to date as to what's going on, all those developments. That's not a reasonable expectation to have of an IT person in a company of 50 plus employees. And then they inadvertently, despite wanting to do a really good job, are kind of having their hands tied behind their back a bit.
Yeah, exactly. And also, if you do have that member of staff and you send them off to a conference, they're not supporting your staff when they've got a problem with the IT. So it just doesn't work. It can do. I'm not saying it won't, but I'd say generally speaking, you kind of have these different scales, and I would say outsourcing IT for a small business makes a huge amount of sense because you've got access to multiple different resources, a wider range of experience, and ultimately a more robust IT setup because you're not just relying on one person. You've got access to so much more.
I find it so interesting because obviously especially now, we talked about back in the 80s and 90s when technology was just being made accessible for the majority of households. Obviously nowadays, I think we realize as business owners as well, IT is essentially the backbone of the majority of businesses. Mm-hmm. So to not actually see that as a big threat, because if that goes down, that's your entire business down as well. And obviously having in-house, we've been through that. But how do you explain to people, and it's not really much of a conversion, but how do you explain to them, and how do you get that message across that this is actually something it's not a want, it's a need that business owners need to really think about and implement.
Yeah, okay. The doctor's in the house. We all know prevention is better than cure, right? And that's the main thing. IT management, support, managed services, whatever you want to call it, you could view of it as a sort of insurance policy in many respects, and that's kind of what it is. You hope you're never actually going to need it, but you want to know that it's there in case you do, if that makes sense. Unfortunately, a lot of business owners, through lack of experience or ignorance, they might bury their heads in the sand or take the view that it's never happened to me, so I'm fine, thanks very much, don't need your services, and that's okay. But it's amazing the number of small business owners that we've spoken to where they have had a problem in the past. Either they've lost some data or they've been hacked. They're so much more motivated and engaged in our services from the get-go. We're not having to sell ourselves. We don't like to do that anyway. It's not really what we're about. But they already get it. They already have a very deep understanding of what we do and why it's important. And that's the big difference. Is if you've not been burnt before, then you're less motivated to engage with an IT company. That's my personal experience anyway. It's what we see quite a lot.
Yeah, if you haven't felt that pain, then actually you can't. You're never going to appreciate that in the same way as someone who actually, like you say, has been burned by something that has been catastrophic for their business. That's a never event. We can't have that again. Yeah, they're clearly going to appreciate that more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they see it as an important function of their business. And the more dynamic business owners as well, they see it as an investment rather than an overhead. And that's a really important distinction as well, because done right, and we do try and do it right. It is an investment because if your systems are up to date and they're running smoothly, your staff are more efficient. They're less likely to be disgruntled about IT issues, and that is a thing in businesses. Staff can get really frustrated. We all can. If IT systems are running poorly, it impacts not just at production, but almost at an emotional level. So as I say, investment in IT makes the world of difference for businesses, because at the end of the day, you want your IT systems to be invisible almost. You just get on with your job and you take it for granted the fact that this stuff all just works perfectly. Obviously that's the utopia we're aiming for. The reality is sometimes a bit different with budget constraints and so on and so forth, but I truly believe we can get small businesses to a place where they can enjoy doing their jobs and not having to worry about niggling IT issues.
And particularly if they want to scale, right? Because if you're, like, what you said is really, really resonated in a way, because if you're providing that very, very important scaffold of healthy, productive, supportive IT work, then that's a great platform to then start to build a business to the next level. And not have to worry about that, or not know the unknown unknowns that you might encounter when you're trying to go to the next level. Oh, actually, we didn't have this system right, and it was never right to start with, but now that's been really catastrophic because we've tried to grow and it's caused all sorts of problems. So that's another angle I hadn't really considered until you mentioned it, but that's brilliant.
It can go both ways as well. Like poorly implemented systems, and it can be something as simple as the email service that you're using. We see it all the time where a business starts up, they sign up for a domain name, they get a basic website, and they get, you got free email service, brilliant. So you start using that, and then you hire somebody else, and you're using this free email service that is not built to cope with the volume of email that you're now sending. You add on a couple more staff, a few more email accounts, and suddenly you've got a mess because you've got to go and retrospectively move that email service to a new provider, migrate all the data over, all while you're trying to run your business and not impact on the email flow. So we can obviously help businesses with that, and we do on a regular basis, migrating to a more appropriate business grade email solution. But it's amazing the number of businesses that still get caught out by that. And it's one of those things, things can grow organically over time, and it can happen quite quickly sometimes. We get it, it happens. There's a lot to be said for having the right systems in place from the start, if you can, and if not, then hopefully we can help.
And obviously, to add to your point as well, and yours, which is it's an investment. Obviously, if something goes wrong and we're dealing with people's data, your clients' data, or even the actual system in itself, the potential loss or cost to fix things or to just mend things could be substantial as well, which then can stop or really delay that progress that you were talking about, or really could send someone into just having to close down, really, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen it recently with Marks and Spencer and the Co-op. They were hit by some pretty nasty attacks. Turns out that they were social engineering rather than hackers and breaking into firewalls and things like that. It was playing the weakest link in the company, which is the people sometimes. So you can really see how these things can have a massive impact. It's shocking, really. But on a smaller scale, with small businesses, the same principles apply when it comes to IT security. And technically, if a company ever experiences a data breach, that's supposed to be reported to the ICO, and there can be fines that are imposed. I say typically they're aimed more at larger businesses, but there's nothing to say that they couldn't make an example of a small business as well. Absolutely, they can.
No, and a short spoiler, of course, we may well be having somebody who is an expert in that area on the podcast soon. Very good. But it's a very good layout for that. But imagine though, André, our businesses, right? If particularly in the work that we do, it's a nightmare scenario for me if suddenly all my data went, or if suddenly all my photos or my clients' photos and things I had to deliver to them just disappeared, or personal data that I'm responsible for is suddenly not secure. I don't ever want to be in that scenario. Okay, and I'm my own person, you're your own person. We don't employ anybody in our businesses yet, but when that day comes, that's a whole heap of things that we need to be considering. Every business needs to be considering. We run our own backups. I've got my network attached storage. I know you do something similar, multiple redundancies, but doesn't mean that someone else can't come and cause havoc, cause chaos, unless we're super careful with what we're doing, and that could be game over. Easily.
And that's the thing, and I feel like even though we are people that think know a little about IT security and stuff. I had a really good chat with you a couple of months ago, and it just just really opened my eyes to actually, just because you know a little about something, just the fact that you have a system that communicates with the narcissist. And I think it was so important to have that conversation with you, because it really made me think about the things that I'm doing and how I'm having everything set up. Because like Sam said, our type of business, because we have a lot of data, a lot of files that that are important to a lot of people. If that goes wrong, that's immense. That's huge. What would you say to small, because obviously we're talking about bigger businesses where we're looking at 50 plus people, or where someone might be looking into employing someone to just look after that. But what about those smaller businesses? What do you do in terms of those? Because I know we talked about, and you mentioned this later as well, but you do have now providing those free health checks, which I think is so important. It really goes to show how far you're going with this. And it's so important for businesses to actually have an idea, because as you said earlier, it's like, well, businesses don't really tend to do anything until something happens. And I think by having these free health checks, you actually giving them the opportunity to actually see, well, this is where something could go wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So we've introduced a free health check as an introduction to our company, if you like. So if somebody is interested in our services, or maybe they've got some existing problems, the best introduction is for us to run through our health check. There's multiple different sections to it, and we're looking at like key areas, I suppose, in IT infrastructure setup. But at the end of it, we produce a report that the business owner can easily understand. It's a traffic light report, so we can easily highlight areas of weakness. But fundamentally, it gives the business owner a very clear understanding of where they're at and the types of things they should be paying attention to. And it's been quite eye-opening for me as well to go through this with a wide variety of local businesses, and the number of business owners and or decision makers that have just been making assumptions about the state of their IT. And I've had bumped into somebody the other day who, it's Julian from Woodstock. You do our IT. I'm like, all right, okay, I don't recognise this person. I didn't say that to them, by the way. But I went away. And we are recording this. It's fine. I'm not naming no names. But I went away and had a look on our system. And I was like, okay, we sold you a PC 4 years ago. And there's no ongoing service. There was an antivirus, but you didn't renew it. And in their minds, we do their IT. So that's a fairly extreme example. Sure. But it sort of got me thinking, well, how many other people are in that same boat where we've had an interaction with them and they don't really fully understand what we do, and in their minds, that's it, job done until next year, if you like. There's an amazing number of businesses out there that are in that same position to varying degrees. And we want to help them ultimately. We want to explain to them in simple language, not tech jargon, but simple language. This is the stuff that is important, and this is why you need to do it. And we can help. That's what we're here to do ultimately.
But you do, I think it's important to say that you also, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you also provide the putting out fire service. So if something goes wrong, you can be there. And I suppose that's the idea that they have about you doing their IT. Yeah. It's like, well, if you call me, then obviously I'll help you. But obviously we don't want to be putting out fires. We want to have a consistent layer of protection.
So putting out fires is something that we can do, but we want to help businesses avoid being set on fire in the first place. If that makes sense.
That's a fantastic, that's a really great offer. A free health check that just gives a traffic light report of areas that you may not have even considered in your business. What have you got to lose by doing that? You've got a ton of stuff to gain by just having that knowledge of where the pitfalls may be. Because I'm giving that example you mentioned about that business owner who's in their minds has got their IT sorted. I'm sure there's loads who are out there who maybe think, I've definitely got someone doing something, or the person here doing something, and it, as far as I know, things are going fine because I'm not seeing anything go wrong in front of me. And that sounds like the perfect kind of person who should be doing a free health check.
Yeah.
But then really everyone should be doing it from what you've been saying.
Yeah, it certainly can't do any harm. And we're also doing it with those clients that are engaged with us on managed services. So we're starting to introduce that now because, the reality is things change over time. So what we were selling as a package, 4 or 5 years ago is not got everything that is required in today's technological age. So we can sit down with our clients and have those conversations and go through the health check process and highlight these things to them so that they have the opportunity to make an informed decision and ultimately, bring their systems up to scratch. Because, there's a real risk of, you get stuck on a legacy system, and that can start to have a problem. Start to cause problems.
I love that. I love the philosophy you bring to it. I mean, it's just like these newsletters that you provide. There's just actually great information here. That just to take the tagline for this one. Does your business spend more on cloud storage than you realise? It's great to just have these bits of knowledge that it just shows how keen you are to make sure that everyone is as knowledgeable as they need to be. And this could be like game changing. Just this one little thing could be game changing for a business who's paying for thousands of different cloud storage they don't actually need, but because at one point they thought they did. Here we go. Okay, great, that's fine. The accountant will sort out where that pot of money comes from for this, etc. But I love that. I just love that way that you operate.
I mean, that as an example and as a bit of advice to anyone who's listening, the most common one we see is people that have subscribed to Dropbox or Dropbox Professional or whatever it's called these days. They change the name every once in a while for some reason. But ultimately, you're paying a subscription to Dropbox. And then meanwhile, you've got Microsoft 365 and you're paying them for your emails and access to Teams. But what a lot of people don't realise is that also includes OneDrive. And OneDrive and Dropbox are essentially the same system. So if you've got data sitting in Dropbox, move it to OneDrive and cancel the Dropbox and save yourself some money, because there's no sense having two of them. You might say, well, I've got one there and I've got one there, that's a backup. But unless you're manually copying it over, it's not really doing you any favours. So, that's the most common one where we're able to save companies money, just to bin off those legacy subscriptions that are just not using.
There's
anymore.
a great bit of free advice. I might look at my Dropbox this week.
Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive, iCloud.
So many, but then it just keeps going and going and going, doesn't it? And like you say, you're talking about 3 or 4 years ago, the services that or packages that you provided. They may not necessarily be right for the current climate, for what businesses may be using your services for, or any IT managed service provider. So seeing stuff like this, this is like the July 2025 edition, and it's great to have that up-to-date knowledge and knowing that people like yourself and in your company are always looking out for those new, not just, this isn't a threat to business in terms of like ransomware or hacks, but it's a threat to businesses in terms of, hey, look, we're all having a difficult time around lots of businesses struggling, lots of businesses trying to just make ends meet, some of them. But hey, don't hurt yourself by not knowing this stuff. And hats off to you for providing stuff like this. I think it's fantastic. I've not seen this anywhere else. And it's great to have that.
Thank you. And we're sort of, from the marketing perspective as well, it's a physically printed newsletter, and we're an IT company. It's like what's going on?
Where's my email?
It stands out. I took that to a business networking event earlier this week, and somebody commented on the fact that that's actually really, really nice to see. And it's a great quality piece of printed material as well. Thank you to Inca Creative Print.
Oh yes, thank you to Inca Creative Print.
Thank you, Martin.
My business cards as well. Thank you, Martin. Brilliant. Yes.
And it's obviously, we're talking about one thing though, like the cloud services, but it's all these little things that together and combined create a bigger problem, a bigger issue, where again, going back to that position where the business owner is wearing so many hats, you can't keep on top of these things. You can't just keep an eye out for every single time there's a change or you need to upgrade your router, or there's been a firmware update on your NAS. It's all these things that really play and really could go wrong, and you really can't keep on top of it. And obviously by just giving something out like this, it makes it has a huge impact. I really value newsletters like that, because it just goes to show your,
that's
and
great
again, it
thinking.
just shows your expertise as well.
I mean, that's what we're trying to do. And going back to what you're saying as well about business owners, you know, trying to do their own IT, there's a triangle that you can apply to many things in life or business. You've got time, knowledge, and inclination. And if any one of those three is missing, then outsource it, right?
Yes.
Arguably, with IT, I don't think the business owner's got time. Certainly doesn't have the knowledge, and I can't imagine he's that way inclined to do it. So the triangle is an invisible triangle at this point, and just give up, you know, outsource it.
Brilliant. Is that where the infinity symbol comes from? Actually, just thinking about it.
Yeah, let's go there. Yeah. All right.
There you go. That's your new tagline. Don't use triangles, use infinity.
Yeah, brilliant.
Nice.
Fantastic. Excellent.
So I suppose we could talk about a bit more of what services, managed services you provide. Then obviously you do the free health checks to start with. What kind of things fall under the managed services?
So obviously the biggest thing is that ongoing support and access to our help desk on an unlimited basis. And we'll say unlimited, we operate standard office hours at the moment. So it's having, you know, that peace of mind that there's somebody you can call to assist with those day-to-day IT issues, and you're not going to receive a bill every time because you've got it on a package. In addition, there's all of the cybersecurity solutions that we bolt into that. And obviously we are trying to get our clients to a point where they are cyber essentials ready, and I'll talk about cyber essentials in a minute. But all of that combined, along with an element of proactive monitoring and maintenance. So a bit like your car, if your PC or your laptop has a fault, it will log it in its event logs. And we can view that and pull that information out and go to the business owner or the user of the machine and say, you've got a problem here, you know, maybe you're running out of space, or this system took more than a minute to start up, that's not right, that sort of stuff. And so in that respect, we can catch a lot of problems before they even have an impact on the end user or the business. So that's a really important point that's often overlooked, because some businesses we speak to, they'll say, well, I haven't really needed to call you guys in the last 6 months. So what are we paying you for again? And so we have to kind of explain it. Like, actually, the reason you're not calling us is because we've been fixing all this stuff quietly behind the scenes so that we didn't cause you any inconvenience. It's like, oh my God, we can't win. But anyway, but it's a really important point that having that system in place, having that managed services package, it's peace of mind for the business owner. And actually the clients that we really like working with are the ones that go, haven't needed to call you guys for a while, thanks for doing a great job. But this is the nature of working in IT, right? We solve problems, that's what we do. People don't phone us up to tell us everything's working all right. They phone us up with an issue.
Yes.
So we kind of, there's almost we're on a negative back foot from the start, because maybe that person's a bit irate about it, or it's a repeat issue. It's like, this should have been fixed before. These things happen. But yeah, as I say, having that ongoing service in place, it's peace of mind for the business owner. And we can provide the best service when we have that package in place, because we've got all of the insight we need into their systems. We've got them on our recommended suite of software and security solutions, and we expect our clients to maintain a minimum standard with the age of their hardware. Obviously, if we're trying to breathe life into a 10-year-old PC that's got smoke coming out the back, that's a bit of a problem, right? So we need to do something about it. And obviously, the end of this year, we've got Windows 10 is going end of life. So that is forcing the hand of a lot of business owners to upgrade to Windows 11. And Microsoft have taken a leaf out of Apple's book this time around and have introduced a sort of forced obsolescence. So if you have a system that's maybe more than 5 years old, there's a good chance it won't actually run Windows 11. So as a consequence, a lot of businesses are having to upgrade hardware, which is just crazy from an electronic waste point of view. But, we can help. We can recycle old hardware, and we can take care of that as well. So we try and be sort of as ethically positioned as we can as well.
It's basically it's anything that's 8th gen Intel and above is all right.
That's right.
Broadly speaking.
Got it. Yeah.
Right? Yes.
Yeah. Spot on.
Yeah.
So obviously we talked about what was included in your package. You mentioned the cyber essentials. What does that mean for in terms of what does it relate to?
Yeah. Okay. So Cyber Essentials, in a nutshell, is a government accredited scheme that's open to all UK businesses and organisations, and it effectively sets a minimum standard as far as your IT and cybersecurity goes. It's an assessment that we run through, and we have to make sure that you've got all the right controls in place that effectively say that you are Cyber Essentials certified. There's surprisingly, the IT industry in the UK is largely unregulated. So anybody can say, I'm an IT expert, and you as a business can engage the services of that person, and that's absolutely fine. But you're obviously doing that on their word and on trust. As Woodstock IT, we've got 14 years of experience and a good amount of social proof that kind of confirms that we know what we're doing, more or less. But Cyber Essentials puts a standardization around that, an accreditation, a certificate that says, yeah, everything is fine here, and you've got all the right systems in place. Because at the end of the day, if you come to me and we're providing the IT service, and I can tell you, yeah, everything's fine, we're marking our own homework, aren't we? Effectively. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you bring in a third-party assessment, nobody's getting away with anything. You've got to make sure you've got all those systems in place, and ultimately you're confirming to your clients, if nothing else, that you take your IT security seriously. And here's our certificate and our big tick mark that says that we do. So yeah. That's it in a nutshell.
I think again, it's just that extra level of assurance as well, isn't it? Yeah. Because you can really trust that what you're doing is done to a standard where it's not just someone else. That is not regulated, and it's so important because, as we mentioned before, you kind of treading on thin ice nowadays. Everything is digital. If something goes wrong.
Yeah, you can't be taking those risks, right? Yeah, exactly. I had no idea that it wasn't regulated, and that's.
I didn't know that.
I imagine many don't, which is great knowledge to have. Actually, fantastic.
Yeah, and we see it fairly often at we're gonna go and use this company is just set up. It's a one-man band, and sure, it's going to be a lot cheaper, but how much knowledge have they actually got?
Yeah.
So it can be a risk.
It's a massive risk.
Yeah.
Gosh, I'll have to ask. I didn't want to be that controversial this early on in the podcast. Apple or Microsoft?
So I'm a bit of a weirdo when it comes to the answer.
You have to finish that sentence. So just leave it there. Cheers, guys. See you.
So a lot of people who work in IT doing what I do, they are hard and fast Microsoft. Right. About 5 years ago, I made the jump to Apple. Because I just found it did everything I needed it to do. I wasn't so involved in fixing stuff anymore. I was more, business management, marketing, strategy, things like that. And I felt like I could do without the noise of Microsoft and all its quirks. So I made the shift over to Apple. It plays nicely with my iPhone, iPad. Everything just kind of works, and that's fine. It works for me. The end result for our clients is we've got experience with both. So I think if you speak to any one of my guys, they'll just say, yeah, Microsoft, you've got to have Windows, But if you speak to me, I'll give you a different answer.
So technically I win, right?
Yeah. Do you know what? Everybody wins.
Everyone wins in Woodstock IT. That's the point he's making, right? Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant.
No, it's one of those things. So some IT companies, perhaps a vast majority of them, will have a bias towards one particular system. I would say for most businesses, it makes sense to use Windows, probably from a cost perspective, because the hardware's a lot cheaper, generally speaking, and it's more widely adopted in businesses. For creative companies, marketing and so on and so forth, they might lean more towards Apple. But the point is, from Woodstock's point of view anyway, we can support both environments, and we will happily do so.
Brilliant. That's great to know, actually. Yeah.
Do you? I'm assuming you also provide then the suggestion, as in if someone comes to you and says, "This is what I want to do. This is what my business is about." What platform would you recommend, and can you then introduce that and implement that?
Do you know what, that scenario, I would say, doesn't come up very often, because most people will have had some prior exposure or use of a system, and they will already have a preference. But I would say the vast majority of businesses in a startup capacity might lean more towards Windows from a cost perspective. And it obviously you can do everything. And I think Apple these days, a lot of the software that used to be only on Apple does play nicely on Windows now, a lot more than it used to. So it might just come down to something as simple as personal preference, but we can take a view on the type of business, and we can make recommendations. I would say there's probably, I'd say probably lean more towards Windows for most businesses.
Until you can go to Apple.
Yeah. Until you can afford it.
I've had such a weird journey with that. Like throughout the years, I started on Windows, went Apple, then went back to Windows. I'm one of those ones. I don't think there's many people who've done that.
So you're the weirdo
strange one.
Back, yeah. I went to Apple when just towards the end of when I was in medical school. Because I was doing a lot of music, right, and Apple was just better. Like it was just Logic and everything, and I could sequence all my keyboards and stuff on it in a way that no Windows laptop was able to do. But at the time, it was also, and this is obviously different now, but at the time I just found it rubbish for getting actual work done. Like so for anything else, it was just this is so cumbersome. It won't. At the time, it didn't play nice with there's so many compatibility issues between I'm at work doing Windows stuff and come out, this won't work, or this isn't floating nicely. So then I eventually moved back to Windows just for that reason, and it's just been fine. But I mean, there's so many things that clearly, are gravitating towards Apple for so many of the creative industry makes a lot of sense, hands down. But like you say, the compatibility now between both systems has got almost seamless for so many things, which is great.
Yeah, certainly. But that kind of goes both ways. As Apple for a while were using Intel processors, which traditionally were only ever in Windows systems. So there's been a lot of chopping and changing going on. But and then we get some clients coming to us saying, I need to run this piece of software, it only works on Windows, and I need it on my Mac. So then you end up in a virtual Windows environment inside the Mac, and it's just so that's fun. But it can be done, and the technology is such that it's possible. And on the other side of that as well, Microsoft introduced the Surface Pro laptop, which was their sort of competitor against the MacBook Pro. So it comes down to, I suppose, whatever you like at the end of the day.
Preference, isn't it?
Because I suppose the point I'm getting at is it's very unusual to have a compatibility issue between one system or the other. There is always a solution, regardless of which one you choose.
And this is probably the friendliest Windows versus Apple.
No,
chat
it's never that friendly
between us,
it's always very heated.
There you go. Yeah, I said the guys in the office, they just make fun of me all the time. Because, and I just play to them. I've got an Apple because I'm a simpleton, and it's just easy. And that's it. End of conversation.
Do I keep that in? Do I edit that out?
I don't know. I mean, it's an attack on myself. So I'm not saying that all
the other Apple simpletons.
I was going to say that was a double
reason.
A double attack.
I don't mind. Leave it in. Yeah, it's all good.
Fantastic. Well, there's also we talk about how. There is a tangent I kind of want to move on to here, because we've talked a lot about how you provide a lot of information to businesses and business owners. It's so invaluable, but you do a lot of work that actually is a bit unseen, I personally think, but I want to draw attention to it, which is in the last couple of years, I've been involved with the Battle of the Bands in Horsham. So I've been sponsoring at a silver tier level to provide some support, and hats off to all the guys who run Battle of the Bands. It's been fantastic. Like I've only been involved for the last couple of years, but I've heard the stories of how it used to be, and it's just great to have such a thriving music scene in Horsham. But Woodstock IT, gold sponsors, right? Your banner front and centre at the top of that stage. Thanks, thank you for sponsoring it and providing that help and support for, as I say, the guys who run it. They just do a fantastic job. I know they couldn't do it without that. But so A, thanks, but B, tell us about that. So your link to the Battle of the Bands and why you guys support it the way you do.
Okay, so I've played guitar my whole life, like literally as long as I can remember. And from sort of college age onwards, I was playing in bands and just making a hell of a racket, just having a bit of fun.
Nice.
And so that led on to taking part in the Horsham Battle of the Bands, and that was all the way back in 2001. So I was 17 years old, and my band at the time, Nematosis, we were called. Amazing. That was when they used to host it. They used to host it at the Extra Time Bar in Broadbridge Heath, which was inside the leisure centre.
Okay.
They knocked it down a few years ago. It was tragic. But that was a massive sort of hub for live music in Horsham for many years. And so it took on a life of its own, and then they had to move it to a bigger venue. So then for several years it was hosted at the Drill Hall on Den Road, and then they used to have the final on the Carfax bandstand, and this was all run by an organisation called the HDLMA, the Horsham District Live Music Alliance.
Okay, sure.
And they were a big part of the scene, and it was I think they were registered as a charity. They set up QM Studios, which is the studios behind the Drill Hall.
Yeah, that's right. It's just off Den Road, isn't it?
That's it. Yeah, you got it. Yeah. So that went on for many years, and obviously as things happen, people come and go, and gradually the alliance was disbanded, and so a chap called Jamie Stanley, or Stan as we know him, he came in and sort of took on the Battle of the Bands and kind of kept it going, and they were looking for sponsorship, so we jumped in, and that was I continued to play in bands and did compete in the sort of the 2000s era when it was probably at its largest. In recent years, I haven't had my hand in so much, so I suppose it was my way of staying connected to the live music scene and giving something back, while sort of not actually being as actively involved as I used to be.
That's a hell of a thing you do. I mean, last couple of years when I've been to the finals. Actually, even the heats, which I didn't manage to make this year, but Stan he mentions Woodstock IT every 5 minutes. Yeah, just like gold sponsors Woodstock IT. I'm thinking, well, I know who Julian is, but I don't know that anyone else does. Maybe they do, but I'm thinking, I kind of wish they did. I wish they knew the guy or to understand that it was someone who is really passionate about it. Yeah. Not just maybe I'm being presumptuous, but I think if I came to something like that cold, I'd be thinking, well, why is an IT company supporting this? What's I got to do anything? But actually, I love that connection that you have, and I think if more people knew that, the better.
Yeah, I mean, now you know. Also, Woodstock IT, Woodstock Festival. I mean, let's go.
Oh, there it is.
I was actually going to ask about
that. But no, I mean, as I say, I love being involved with it, and we'll continue to sponsor it as long as we continue to ask to.
Brilliant.
And I'll try and get down to the events whenever I can. And as I say, Stan does a great job. And he's so passionate about live music.
I love what he does with it, and just the atmosphere that's there. He's just hats off to him. I do want to get him on the podcast at some point. Yeah, because to hear how he does it, just the drive he has to put those events together, I'm just massively in awe of it.
Yeah, no, he's amazing.
So are we seeing a next year? We're going to see a reunion for Nematosis entering.
I doubt that one will reunite. Although we are still in touch. We met up for some Christmas beers last year.
Nice.
And that was so good. It was like, just to sort of sit down and reminisce.
But so where are you going next with your music then? Are you going to pick something up?
I am working on something at the moment. It's going to be a covers band, and it is going to be heavy. Yeah. Heavy metal.
Because you're into 7-string guitars, right?
I am, sort of thing. But I've got an 8-string guitar, but honestly I don't know what to do with all those strings.
The 8 was just too much.
Yeah, it's just too much. So, 7 I can cope with just about.
Just like I can gent on this, but what do I do with this 8 as well? Play Baroque? I don't know.
It's Baroque or gent. I don't know, one of the 8-string. I end up just using 1 string, so I might as well just have a gent stick. It's fine.
So what guitar is it out of interest? 8-string. What's the make?
It's a Schecter. They make some beautiful guitars for not very much money, so that suits me just fine.
No, they're a great brand for that. Just giving you a lot of value for money.
Definitely. I mean, it's got Seymour Duncan pickups, which you see in sort of much more expensive guitars, and they're really good bits of kit. So
that's cool, man. So I can't wait to see what materializes.
It's going to be loud, whatever it is.
Fantastic.
So we're talking about staying on top of your game with IT, obviously, to keep up everything, and then now just adding a little bit more. Just because you and then just to keep up because you're not busy enough. You're on your Apple computer. The Windows guys do the work. That's why you're not busy.
Yeah,
exactly. I do the creative stuff. Yeah.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Fantastic. And also, I understand, and I've not witnessed this, of course, but I understand that you. I guess what's the way of phrasing this? Like you are a super stealth sleuth at poker. Is that a thing that you're? I can imagine you just kind of just rinsing the table with with a blink of an eye.
What can I say? I mean, I have my moments. Some are good, some are bad.
Moments.
But no, I love the game. I've started playing a few of the. There's a few games throughout Horsham that are hosted at various pubs throughout the week, and I've met loads of new people. Made loads of new friends. Brilliant. So there's a really good social element to it.
But you do more than that, right? You've gone around. You've played poker in some exotic places, or just around in big tournaments and stuff, right?
I have toured around a bit. So around the UK, I played a bit in Manchester, Edinburgh, Coventry. I played in a big tournament a few weeks back.
Just a little hobby then,
just a little hobby. And then a few weeks back before that, Dublin, and I played in the Philippines a couple of times as well. So.
Wow.
So
just so everyone knows, we've said this on previous podcasts. These are unscripted. I didn't know he was going to say that.
Okay,
that's a thing. So international poker master.
Not master, but
partaker. Yes.
Enjoyer
with his moments.
That's it. No, it's all right. It's a hobby that pays for itself. And I like the strategy behind it. I like analysing people because people give away a lot of information without even realising it. I like the fact that, I mean, sometimes people will take a view poker is gambling, and sure, there's an element of luck to it, but if you approach it the right way, you're playing against the other players, whereas traditional, casino games, roulette, there's a house edge.
That's it.
In the long term, you're losing because the house is winning. Right, that's why those businesses exist. So poker is a bit of a thorn in the side of most casinos because it doesn't actually make them that much money. So it's that's a sort of a fairly valid point in as much as it is a skill game more than anything else. And so I really enjoy kind of getting under the skin of the game and understanding its fundamentals at a level that most people that play casually they just won't bother to do.
That's really clean house, right?
It's about having an edge as well. So if you sit down at a poker table and you're the worst player there, then you're going to lose. It's as simple as that. And you can apply that to many things in life. I've heard it said in business.
Yes.
If you want to be successful, surround yourself by successful people. It's a kind of an analogy on its head almost, but it's the same sort of principle.
Yeah. So that's interesting. You mentioned about places in Horsham that I didn't realise there was a bit of a poker community around.
It's huge.
Oh, wow,
it's massive to the extent. I mean, I'm in talks with one of the guys. It might be a bit of a pipe dream, but we've got an idea that we might set up our own card room because I mean, there's a huge amount of regulation on casinos. It's really hard to get a license for that, and I would imagine Horsham Council would squash that straight away if somebody was trying to open a casino in Horsham. But there is a market for a card room that is legitimate and operates within the law. You've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday nights. There are games running in various locations in Horsham.
Really? Wow.
Monday and Tuesday night ones will attract 20, 25 people every week.
So there's definitely a scene for this thing.
That's run by a company called Red Tooth, and they kind of set up their business on the basis that it's filling up the pubs on quieter nights of the week, which is brilliant. So it's good for the pubs. It's good for the community. So
what's stopping you then? Why aren't you setting this up?
I'm a bit busy.
Well, maybe that isn't so good then. Back to Windows.
That's it. I think it's something that could happen, but it's a little way off yet. So
I love that ambition though. That's just from what you're describing, that big scene that's there. Sounds like people are pretty hungry for it. Why would you not be if there is such a big thriving community already? And like you say, that the side benefit for other businesses as well. Like there's a lot of stuff like that going on in Horsham. We see the Friday lates that the council put on, and what a huge boon that is for businesses around, just not just in Carfax, but around Horsham generally. So it's great to kind of see that vibrance in the town. And if there's something else that can bring it into the weekdays that aren't necessarily full, but keep that vibe going, beautiful.
I think it's so important. I feel like we are very, very lucky to have the local council and the district council be that into actually providing for the community. We saw the first degree in first hand how COVID really impacted everybody. Just on, obviously it was awful, but on so many levels. And one of the biggest ones was the social side of it, where no one could go and communicate or see each other or have that physical interaction with someone else. And I feel like we're actually quite privileged that now there's all these things coming back, or they are now in place as well. We got pubs with these events. We've got Battle of the Bands. I always used to hear when I first moved here that Horsham was such a big scene, big music town. And then it kind of went dead for a bit, or not as busy. And now it's all coming back again with the Friday Lates, with Battle of the Bands. And from my perspective, it's so important to have people like you supporting those local causes, because that's what engages the community and keeps it going. And obviously, if we got a thriving community, everyone benefits from it.
Thank you. And there's something and I kind of alluded to it already, like just off what André was saying. There's something really like oddly philanthropic about you, but also your business is super successful. It's doing really well, and this just shows that the passion that you have behind your music, behind supporting people in their businesses with their IT, around all aspects, giving them free information, making sure that people are up to date and their knowledge base is there. Well, that's wonderful. And no wonder Woodstock IT is doing great, because that's such a great philosophy that I don't see other people having. I'm not an expert with managed service providers around the country, of course I'm not, but I've never seen that in a company like yours in any respect, even on a surface level. So hats off to you, and thank you so much for doing all of that.
No, thank you.
It's brilliant.
Thank you. I mean, I'm trying to just give something back to the community that has some meaning, and that is not necessarily designed to make more money for us. It's just literally just giving something back, and it doesn't have to be relevant to us. It's fine. It was relevant to me. There is a connection there, as I explained, but we try and do what we can.
Fantastic. And of course, and I know you were saying you're super busy and everything, but is that because you're too busy being a chef wannabe? I understand that's another thing that is creeping into your life, / taking over your life.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
So tell us a bit about this cooking.
As if there's not enough already.
So I will happily, and I mean this genuinely, I will happily do a 12-hour day at work, and I will go home and I will cook a decent quality meal from scratch.
Tell us about this. So what kind of meals? Where has this come from? Where are we going?
Okay, well, this particular example I wouldn't do at the end of a busy day. but during lockdown, I obviously had a bit more spare time on my hands, as I think a lot of people did. So I got to know my barbecue quite well, and I perfected the Texas-style low and slow smoked brisket. It's like American style barbecue. Sure. Just on a Weber kettle barbecue. It's a little bit of trial and error. Fortunately, it was more success than failure, which is good, because if you buy a whole brisket, it's like 60 quid, right? So you don't want to mess it up. Just get it right. So that was a nice bit of extra pressure on me, which is exactly what I needed at that point in my life. It was great, because it was a bit of a labour of love. Watching some YouTube videos to understand the process, a bit of science behind it. It's great because that appeals to my inner nerd, and so I can sort of perfect the process, and now I can do that confidently without having to refer to any books or videos. I know how to do it. I understand the science behind it. If you ever smoke a brisket, you've got to set the temperature inside the barbecue at about 110, 120 degrees Celsius. And then you want the internal temperature of the meat to get up to about 95 Celsius. But when it gets to 70, it will stop and it will sit there at 70 for sometimes 4, 5, 6 hours, to the point that you think you're losing your mind. And then sometimes it might even drop a little bit, because why not? Just sometimes I do this and I think, why am I here? But anyway, you get through it, and you wrap the thing up, and then you let it rest for a few hours, and then it's brilliant. And then I like nothing more than serving a really good meal to my friends and family and getting the praise. That's all it is. It's completely selfish.
It's just that inner, slightly psychopathic narcissist within you just needs that validation.
I wouldn't go with that. It's more like just words of affirmation. That's all I want.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Narcissist seems a bit much. All right.
Sorry, that's I'm clearly revealing a bit too much about myself.
Projection.
Projection. Probably.
Yeah, it's all good.
So, aside from, that's a great example of quite a tough, meaty, pardon the pun, dish to get into. But anything else that is around that, or any other kind of particular cuisines that you're leaning towards in terms of what you make, or any ambitions to make something that is particularly challenging?
The thing is, I think once you've done a brisket on a barbecue with charcoal, it doesn't get much more challenging than that. So, but there are always other things that can be done. I love Asian cuisine, like spicy food. I'm a huge fan of that. So, and there's just no end of variety when it comes to that particular type of food. There's a few things I still want to get my head around, but it's that's the thing with food. I find a lot of joy in it. I like preparing it. I like eating it, and I like discovering new things as well. So it's just something that's simple on so many levels, but also can be as complex as you want it to be. But then sometimes I get home from a busy day and I'm like, oh, there's a steak in the fridge. Got some eggs, steak and eggs it is, that'll do. So good enough. I'll be a bodybuilder tonight.
The protein, that's it.
Yeah,
and that's fine.
Brilliant. Fantastic. And I guess one other element that I'd like to ask you about is something that you mentioned to me a little while ago, is that your dad's an artist. And he's I've seen photos that you've shown of his artwork, but much to my own detriment, I've not been to see any of his artwork or galleries. I think he puts on some exhibitions. Is that right?
Yeah, we've hosted a couple in the last couple of years. Yeah.
So tell us a bit about that, because the photos that you showed me were quite. He seems to have a really. There's a picture I'm remembering, or a painting that I'm remembering, of it was like a swimming pool and. Looking down on it, and I think were you like playing drums or something? It was a painting of you playing an instrument in the swimming pool, which I just thought was it reminded me of that old Oasis Be Here Now cover, just like the drums in the swimming pool kind of thing. But I just thought what a fascinatingly different perspective on art.
So that particular piece is called Soft Percussion, and so it was kind of self-explanatory in a way. The drums are in the swimming pool, and off we go. But I must have been about 14, 15 years old.
And you didn't drown, so
no, I came out the other side. It's all right. I'd actually borrowed a drum kit from someone, and we set that up in the garden. And the way our garden is set out, there's steps that are up high. So the garden on the lower patio, and so my dad took a picture of that from above to study, and then he had some pictures of a swimming pool, and then he sort of mashed the two together. We've had. Somebody interviewed him during one of his recent exhibitions. So there are some little short videos on his Facebook page. Great. John Shelley, artist, by the way.
Yeah, if you send me some of the links, I can link that in the description of this podcast. It'd be great to check that out.
I will. So he did a little interview, and his explanation of some of his ideas was nonsensical. It was he just has this random stuff that comes into his head, and he's got to put it down on a canvas. And it's amazing some of the stuff he's come up with. Some of the ideas are just so obscure, but just genius.
Absolutely. I mentioned that painting because it really struck me when I saw it, and then you explained it. That's I'm trying to draw this kind of meta-analysis in my own head about you get from point A to point B here, but it was a wonderful piece of art. When's the next exhibition, or is there anything that's being shown?
So we haven't got anything planned at the moment, but hopefully I think in the spring we'll do something again, and just kind of keep it going, really, because he's got hundreds and hundreds of paintings that are just sitting there and nobody ever really sees them. So it's only in the last couple of years we've got him out and sort of shone a light on it a little bit.
Brilliant. And he's still as active in that now, yeah?
Yeah. So he's drawing or painting every day.
Brilliant.
And he's well into his 80s now, and honestly I'm pretty sure it's keeping his mind active. He still remembers everything. He's as sharp as he was when I remember from when I was a kid, so really cool.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I love that. I must get down to see it next time. So I'll be keeping a sharp eye out for when that comes. Brilliant.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Brilliant.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because people, and obviously I'm going to do a big assumption here, and please feel free to correct me and tell me off and just beat the crap out of me.
Is it that he secretly likes Windows better than Mac? No.
That's we already asserted. We already got that answer. It's actually Apple. We got that.
Fine.
I find it so fascinating because we associate IT with just lack of creativity, and I hate to say that, but then to hear your story and to hear what you are into and the things outside of that spectrum that you actually really enjoy, and to see it obviously then comes also from your dad as well, which is clearly very creative. It's just so fascinating because people have this idea of IT, like you get the IT crowd, and it was such a big show that obviously it's really fascinating to see that where you have this idea of people. And I think, again, going back to things I've said before, I find it so fascinating to hear the stories about the people behind the business, because you go in with an idea of what the person is going to be like, and then you come out actually like, that's super, super interesting and really changes how I see Woodstock IT going forward, because I just think it just brings a whole extra dynamic to it.
Absolutely, 100%, man. I totally agree with that.
Thank you.
And there's one question that we ask every business owner who comes on here, but I'm actually going to ask a slightly different question.
Is it going to be offensive?
No. Okay. I think I've been offensive enough, but yeah. So the question that we usually ask is, where do you see Woodstock IT going? What's your next plans? And I kind of do want to ask that after this, or we can talk about that after this, but there's something, and we've touched upon this a lot, both me and André today, about actually there's quite a lot that's really inspiring about you and what you do, and not just in your company, but all the other bits that you're talking about, and the passion that comes out when you're talking about your briskets, when you're talking about your guitars, when you're talking about the poker that you just, you're a go hard or go home guy, right? There's no two ways about this. But my question then really is, I'd love to know what you would say to somebody, maybe someone who's starting their career or in school or having done their A-levels, and A-level results have come out today and people are looking to know where they're going to go. What would you say to somebody who's maybe looking to go into a field that you're in, or thinking about, actually, John, maybe this is the sort of thing I want to do, or I hadn't even considered it? How might you, as inspiring as you are already, like to me and André, just from what you've been saying, how might you inspire someone to do the things that you do in that world?
So, first and foremost, you have to be passionate about what you do, right? If you have to enjoy the work that you do, it doesn't matter what industry it is. So if we're specifically talking about IT and technology, it would be somebody who loves tech. They love the latest gadgets. They perhaps they're into gaming. That's a fairly sort of stereotypical sort of setup. And to turn that into a career, you've got to just start at the bottom. You've got to get onto the coalface and onto a help desk and deal with those day-to-day issues. But fundamentally, you have to have a passion for helping people, because just fixing stuff for the sake of fixing it is a bit meaningless. Whereas if you're actually solving a big problem for someone, and maybe you get that feedback from them that they're really grateful for the fact that you've just helped them with this issue, then that can make the whole thing a bit more meaningful, if that makes sense.
Yeah, massively. And actually, I wasn't expecting that message, but that's a great message. That it is fundamentally the business is about helping others.
Yeah.
and again, the authenticity behind that, and we use that word so much. I probably overuse it, sorry, but it actually is authentic, because you saying that completely fits the bill with all the other things we'll be talking about today, with the physical proof of it, with everything that you do in as I say, kind of almost philanthropically. That I imagine that is a big part of why you are as successful as you are, and people going into that career knowing that the helping people element is a huge part of it. You wouldn't necessarily, if you're doing a kind of, as we all did in school, right? The whole kind of, what's your aptitude? What career might you go into? I don't think if you started to tick the help people boxes, you'll end up with IT, MSP or whatever. Yeah. But clearly, there's a huge, if not the fundamental part of it that makes a successful career in that. And thank you for saying, go up the ladder, start at the bottom, because I feel this all the time, even with my own line of, be it my business or the profession I've come from or I'm still in. There's everything. Everyone wants everything immediately. Everyone wants to be at the top immediately, and we get so disappointed or put down or something when that doesn't happen. But of course, you've got to go through the motions to do it, and put in that hard work, put in the graft, understand how things work on a help desk to start with, and work that way up.
Yeah, you've got to have that sort of grassroots, that fundamental knowledge. You obviously these days you have overnight YouTube stars that are taking in millions in ad revenue, and the kids are looking at them and going, well, I want to do that. Exactly. And they think it's easy, but probably that's not happened overnight. Although it might appear so, because the YouTube algorithms suddenly go, today you're going to watch this, and
it's come out of nowhere.
But it's one of those things that there's still a lot to be said for having that basic knowledge and having that understanding. Because that just gives you the perfect foundation to build on, and actually you might then find maybe this isn't the job for me, or I want to go off onto a different branch of it, and that's fine. But at least and you figured it out.
Exactly, and it's helped you be informed in the right way. You're not then guessing. It's great. I've actually got some really informed content of my own life behind me and life experience by having done it the right way. Brilliant. Yeah, fantastic.
I think that's probably the most important thing, is about helping people, isn't it? I feel like you can be really good at something, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you should do it if you don't have the right core values or the right reasons to do it in the first place. Just because you're good at something doesn't mean you should necessarily just pursue it.
You have to have that passion as well behind it, like you're
absolutely
saying.
You need to have the passion, but it's also about knowing what's on the other side as well. You will be helping people. This is part of the main thing. This is IT, it's a constant problem solving machine, isn't it? There's so many things, so many issues going on at once, or one after the other, where you are solving problems. And if you are not a problem solver, but you are good at computers, that perhaps isn't the right profession for you. So it's about knowing that. So I think that's quite powerful.
And we've seen that as well when we've been hiring in the past, where you obviously get a bunch of CVs and you start sort of working your way through them. Okay, who are we going to go for? And you select some for interview. And what I've noticed is that the candidates that have years of experience aren't necessarily the right fit, because they're lacking on personality. And the reality is that we can teach you how to fix computers. We can teach you how to set up Microsoft 365, but we can't teach you how to be human. You've either kind of got that or you haven't. And some people have charisma in bucket loads, and others don't. And so we've had a few situations where we've hired based on skill rather than personality. Doesn't work.
Great, it's great insight to give, and of course, now people who are applying for jobs at Woodstock IT can know what to put in their CV. So, I'll just amend my CV in the corner.
Or we just get a bunch of actors coming.
I know nothing about IT.
Jazz hands. Oh God. So then, I guess the question. So, where do we see Woodstock IT in the future? Where are you going?
So, I mean, we've grown I grew the business from just myself and sort of gradually added more and more staff over the years. This time last year, we had 13 staff. Due to some challenges within the marketplace, we've trimmed that down a bit. There's now 9 of us. and we've consolidated. We've made ourselves more efficient. We're getting more done, and I think our staff are happier overall. And so we want to kind of build on that and start to increase our numbers again. Probably aiming for perhaps 20
Sure.
staff by sort of the next sort of 5-10 years, something like that.
And is there a bigger vision behind that? Like in terms of, I mean, it's great that you've got some great efficient processes in place. Is that towards a bigger goal? Is that towards a bigger vision?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to build something that was meaningful and to ultimately leave a legacy. But it's one of those things, I suppose. I also had a plan for the business where I would build it to a point where it's self-sustaining and doesn't need me in it. But that's a lot easier said than done. Yeah. And actually, the reality is, right now, I enjoy being a part of it, and I want to see it thrive. So that's not something that I'm going to be doing anytime soon in terms of taking a step back. But I need to think about that. Sort of 15, 20 years time. Who knows?
Yeah.
Never say never. But for the time being, I'm enjoying being involved, and I want to see this business be as successful as it possibly can.
Fantastic.
I think that goes to, I think a business always, or I would like to think of businesses that are thriving. They're thriving because obviously they have good processes in place, but because they have also being pulled by someone who's really passionate about what they do, and having this idea that you can just leave it. It really, I find it really difficult to comprehend. Obviously, you get to a certain age where you kind of want to step back, but I think it's so nice to have someone who's driving it, that has the passion for it, that that does this, that has so many other things going on. So my next question is obviously equally as important: the future of Woodstock IT. What about your future?
I mean, I would love to be able to travel more. That's something that I think there's a huge amount of the world that I still haven't seen, and that's something that I can aim for in the future. I'd also like to maybe have another house somewhere, maybe in the Philippines or maybe in the Caribbean, who knows. But got a little way to go yet, so
no restaurant opening then.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought that's where it's going. Honestly, I was going to casino in Vegas or that,
One of the
Woodstock
first jobs
oven.
I had when I was a teenager, I was working in a pub and in the kitchen, and it was fun, but I wouldn't want to do that as a job. Chefs hats off to the chefs out there that do that and keep us fed. But that's not for me. Thanks very much. I'm quite happy just feeding myself and my loved ones.
Brilliant.
But you know what, the brisket thing, maybe there's a street food stall in me or something. I don't know, but who knows?
I can see the cogs turning now.
Maybe.
Ooh, actually. Or you can always credit it to the Focal Playing podcast for where that idea generated.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yep.
10%. We'll take commission.
Actually 5, because you only did half and the other.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess so. In terms of music, in terms of poker, cooking, we've ascertained that obviously you want to do that for yourself. No one else is going to experience Julian's cooking skills. What about music and poker? Is it pretty much just stay as it is, or are you going to take it further? Obviously, we're starting this cover band. Where do you see that go?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to. I want my the band that I'm currently in the process of forming. It is in its formative stages. I'd like that to be gigging within the year, so we can actually do some shows and just have a bit of a laugh. So that's coming, I hope. And then the poker side of things, I mean, it's maybe it's a fool's errand, I don't know, but I just love it, and it's a way for me to switch off as well and really kind of focus on something. I've got a few plans. I'm actually going to Las Vegas in December with some friends, so see what we can do.
Hopefully you make it back is all I'm going to say.
Yeah. I mean, you've seen The Hangover, and you never know, do you? I might end up on the roof for a few days. Yeah. I mean, I can't lose any money if I'm on the roof. So there's always that.
I need to get help. I'll just email somebody. Oh no, it's a Windows laptop. I don't know what to do. Oh no, I'm screwed.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Quickly call back home.
Amazing.
Fantastic.
Well, I think it's been very, very inspiring. Again, I'm always fascinated to hear the stories behind the people who run businesses. And it's even more special when you assume something and then get proven completely wrong. I think there's something very special. No, I find it very fascinating. So thank you for coming on. If people want to take their first steps in terms of starting the process and starting their journey with Woodstock IT, what's the best way for them
all
to
those
do that?
IT health checks, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So just go straight onto our website. There's a big orange button in the middle that says book an IT health check.
Brilliant.
There's a bit of information on there, but fundamentally you've got access to my calendar, so you can literally just choose an appointment that suits you. We'll do an initial 30 minutes online on Teams as a video call. We'll run through the assessment, and then I'll send you the report, and then we just go from there. So there's no obligation to do or buy anything. I will just give you a report at the end of our call, and you can hopefully have something useful in there. Either we can help you, or you can do with it as you will. So yeah,
fantastic, brilliant. Well, Julian, thank you so much for coming on. Like André said, it's been an illuminating experience, and I love hearing everything about the things that you bring to your business, to the outside world, to the community. Yeah, well done. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Excellent.
All right.
Cool.